was it?
I know we're doing something crazy. I pressed the wrong button, which happens a lot of times in life. Welcome to the Daily Dose. I'm Robert. That's my pal Susan.
And you have on a shirt that says something to me of loyalty.
Well,
Somehow
and
you hung on.
it's the same thing as last night. I haven't changed. I'm admitting my smell of this.
You
You
have
can't see that.
not.
Um,
Up
yeah.
working all night.
Number one, that Warriors game was phenomenal last night. For anybody watching the NBA playoffs, you saw just one of the great comebacks, and I mean, all-time efforts by an unsung hero in Kevon Looney. And just I think that the strength of numbers thing in play, they really played to who they are as a team. Of course, Steph Curry gets the attention he does because he's Steph Curry. He's otherworldly, and he would never be able to do it alone. And no one understands that better than their coach who played with Michael Jordan. The guy who, as great as he was, couldn't do it alone.
And did you?
So
Oh my gosh! Did you see him give Looney that hug?
it was that moment. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because, see, Steve Kerr coaches from a position of emotional intelligence. X's and O's hardly matter to these guys. He knows that at this point, they know what they're doing. He trusts them to do that and doesn't micromanage that. However, emotionally, recognizing that's the real potential flaw and fallacy within all of us, he learns to find those moments to tell them, I love you, to say what you're doing is amazing. Keep up the good work. I mean, his words are so simple and so positively affirmative and come from a place of trust that he has built that, I'll never forget one huddle. Steph Curry, I think was in a little bit of a shooting slump, and he put his hand on his shoulders, carry on, my son. And it was that really, it's like, he's not his dad, who is Dell Curry, a wonderful father and man of his own right, an NBA player, ex like Steve, but he gave him fatherly love in that moment. And it truly was, it wasn't flip or anything. It was the warmth and fire that is Steve Kerr. He's
Oh yeah.
perfect coach for that team. And it's been an amazing run.
I hope lots of people saw that. The camera was great. They stayed there for a bit. The national audience saw that. It just said so much, and you
Well,
articulated.
and we haven't seen, I haven't looked at a whole lot of news stories today, so I don't know how many people are going to pick up on that moment. However, I certainly did, and I'm so glad you chose to highlight it because
Oh,
it fits into so much of the work I think we're doing right now. And by the way, whenever I call it work, I always want to hesitate and make sure I call it play too, so that people don't think that this is overly heavy. In yesterday's curriculum class, we did a kind of a deep dive into emotions, and you know, we know what the word means. We, as we've talked about here, tend to believe in society there's only three of them. Yet we understand there's probably a lot more, and that our intelligence and maturity about what emotions are and how much power they have, we are just scraping the surface on this stuff. We're just beginning to try, and it's a real uphill fight because there are lots of people on this heroic journey who are terrified to put emotions into their proper place.
in their own heroic journey, whoever they are, whatever they're doing. I mean, we may not have that language. All of us may not have that language in our vocabulary about our own experiences. But those of us who've done Joseph Campbell's hero's journey always use that language.
Why are people threatened by the presence and attention given to emotion? Some
I
people.
would say primarily because it potentiates a vulnerable. It's a risk. They can't trust. They don't feel safe with the other person to go there.
There's that word, vulnerable.
And safe and trust. And yeah, in communication.
What you're doing may affect me in a way that I may not understand, and I may therefore reflect something back that exposes something of me that I didn't want to share. Is that kind of it?
It can't, that, I would say yes. What stops people before they start? And I think what changes that is strength in numbers, is communication, is time together. Yeah, and it's obviously in our in the ACTS program, in the day one program, there are numbers, you know, somewhere between what 8 and 16 maybe, and the time that we spend and the level of communication and the, I guess I would call it like oversight, Robert, or checks and balances or something. So like you just stopped yourself by saying work and then you changed it to play. And I was telling Lisa on the way to the airport today that there are two words and now there are three that if I catch myself, I stop and shift it. One of them is but. If I'm typing and the word but comes out or writing, it always catches me. And I throw in an and it opens up stuff that it would have been so easy just to toss aside with that but. So that's one of them.
Toss that butt.
Toss that but. You're funny. And then another one is try, because of Master Yoda. You know, do or do not. There is no try. And so I catch myself saying, you know, I'm trying to, or I'm going to try. And then I'm like, let's back up and think about that. No, I'm going to do it. Whether I succeed or not, that's a different story, but I'm going to do it. The thing. And I have just fallen in love with your word play shops for what we're going to be doing at the festival in Austin in December, instead of workshops. I mean, and everybody everywhere calls that kind of breakout thing a workshop. And it's a play shop for us.
And what you bring up is so interesting because it's seemingly so small and so subtle and so prevalent, and yet the effect is so broad and so immediate. And we see this all the time, and it's why I have my fundamental 4 or 5 games that I'll always go back to and do work in a group setting. One of which is, you know, what's not wrong with your life? It doesn't matter how many times you've played that game. If you're playing honestly, and there is that to consider, of course, it's going to affect you. It's going to almost certainly help you recognize I am not in a place of as full of gratitude as I could have been. And that gratitude is the doorway to what was the quote? The moral compass or moral, you know, it's moral memory of humankind, right? It reminds us of who, when we're in a state of gratitude, it reminds us of our best selves we can be.
I'm not sure I know that quote.
Oh, I thought we brought that up yesterday.
Well, if
George Simmel, you know why? I keep putting out so many things, so I think sometimes I'm talking to you and we talking.
I don't know, maybe.
Sociologist, somewhere in the research, he said that gratitude is the moral memory of mankind. And he said, man, I make sure everybody humankind, right? To make sure it's neutral. The moral memory of humankind.
When you were searching for the word, for the expression, but you had said gratitude, I could feel you searching and I could feel where you were going. I had no idea what the language was going to be, but it's almost a mystical kind of thing that when you truly have that gratitude, that you're kind of putting yourself in somebody else's, just one is speaking from one's heart when one's expressing gratitude. And to do that is tapping into the highest and best.
That's what I was going to get to, back to your strength in numbers and everything else. And when you said tapping into one's heart and then you know tapping into others, exactly, it's the same way we think about the brain and the interconnected brains, that your heart is connected to other hearts when you're in a place of gratitude, because you recognize you are a component of a larger thing. And I saw that very strongly in today. This was an emotional day in second round of day one. It was day 12. They came to the end of the journey. And, you know, again, they very much like you guys had that, oh my gosh feeling. Is it's over? And I had to remind them to say, well, the 12th step is over. What we do next, we'll talk about next week at our washout meeting, and, you know, see what you guys want to do and what you want to bring to it. And one of my favorite things is always in there, and you may well remember because you're a fan too, but I bring forth the King Azaz story to Milo about how I couldn't tell you that this journey was impossible at the beginning. I couldn't tell you that. because, you might not have gone. And now I can tell you that you're back, that what you just did was impossible. And I love that so much. I love that so much, that you just did the impossible. And my job was to make sure not to tell you when you were leaving that it was impossible. It's kind of the Han Solo line, never tell me the odds. Right? I mean,
Right.
Luke's shot into the Death Star. He says 1 in a million, but it was impossible. And yet
That
he did it.
scene in the movie when he's going down that.
Yeah. And and so today, as you remember, we showed the scene of them getting their medals, and no words, tremendous John Williams music, scope of set, knowing, loving looks to each other, acknowledgement of what we have done, that speak volumes toward this incredible thing. They just saved the universe. And that's what Joseph Campbell says, right? The journey of a lifetime,
Yeah.
the privilege of a lifetime, is to know oneself. And to know yourself is, to save the universe. You're doing that by following your bliss, by truly understanding who you are. You therefore make the world, that's how you save the world, by saving yourself.
One at a time. And it's all interconnected at a cosmic sort of level that we can't really describe, but can feel.
Well, one of our problems is we tend to still focus on language as the only form of communication, which is why emotional communication and intelligence is so important.
Do you remember what one of the women said in the curriculum class the other day about she'd written a book and it didn't get published, but it was about emotional intelligence.
Uh-huh.
And then when Daniel Goleman, is that how you say his name, wrote that book called Emotional Intelligence for the whole EQ, like introduced that concept to the world, she was like, yes, yes, yes. She didn't need it to be her book. She wanted that information to get out there. It's just that level of believing in that level as being important can be transformative.
When somebody puts on a big stage in a big place something you felt for so long, it can suddenly give you a foothold in this universe you never thought you'd have. And I feel like that guy all the time. And Brene Brown is the most recent version of that person. She has just given me the academic okay.
She's the academic lone nut.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, and she's basically, it's fun to go back and look at some of her relatively earlier stuff, because she references herself about she thought she knew, but she didn't know. And who knows, in 5-10 years, she might be saying the same thing again. However, each step of the way, she's learning more, she's uncovering more. And she recognizes and attributes all the time, she's standing on the shoulders of giants. It's only because she's brought these things together. And this is the steal like an artist. This is the Austin Kleon thing. This is us being our best, right? It's not up to any one of us to push the freaking Sisyphean rock up the hill, right? It is for all of us to collectively, come together and present.
Was it just you pushing your dad up that hill? Probably not.
Right. Look at the picture and I'd say no.
Yeah.
Because that picture, which is unbelievably gorgeous, every person on that race course was, and we were talking about that again in the class this morning, was lifting Dad's and my spirit. And I truly felt at the end of 7.6 miles, I didn't want to stop. I mean, that heroic journey, I wasn't physically wiped out. I could have gone another 7.6. I wanted to keep running. I wanted to keep having the crowd experience and laugh and play and be part of this magical, mystical San Francisco tour we were on. I mean, it was the city in full display.
Doing the strength in numbers thing, doing the
all of it.
Whole is greater than the sum of the parts thing. Yeah.
We are so far over time, but I have enjoyed this immensely, my friend, and I want to say thank you.
Me too.
I have gratitude for you.
The same, Robert.
You.
Ooh.